Well, you know the saying, if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always had. And I think that saying was built for deer hunters for opening day of gun season. So many people have their traditional blinds that they go to. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I think there's some people, and I know a lot of hunters, and I've known hunters like this, that they take their 2 weeks off for vacation for deer season, 1 week off, 5 days, long weekend, and they enjoy sitting in that same blind every single year. They think about it, they dream about it. Every few years, they have a really good encounter with a big buck, and they lay their coffee out, snacks, just have a good time. It's something you look forward to. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But if you want to be more consistent with target bucks and honing in on those older bucks in the neighborhood, to me, there's a proven strategy that's worked really well for me going back for decades. And this is going back to, I learned this hunting the thumb area of Michigan in the mid to late 80s and into the mid to late 90s, about a 10, 11 year stretch. I'd say 87 through 97, right around there. So I think 11 seasons. But bottom line is, because it was all patchwork cover and a lot of ag land and a lot of hunting pressure, with no one telling me to sit here, sit there, because no one in my family hunted. You had to figure it out on your own. It just became very apparent that I needed to hunt this way on opening day to make sure that we saw deer. First off, you have a big patch of buck cover. What I mean by that is this patch of cover could be on your neighbor's, could be on yours. And it's an area where you can actually imagine a big buck going into, because no hunters are in there. No one's driving through it, walking through it. And back to that thumb area in Michigan, in the area I hunted around Cass City, 40 acres was a big, big patch of timber. If you had 20 acres or even 10 acres that no one would go into and was super thick, that was a big patch back then. So it's all relative. You know, around here, it might be 200 acres is really big, or 100 acres is big, or 80. Other places, it might be hundreds of acres is really big. But bottom line is, you're finding that big patch of cover as it relates to where you hunt. Maybe it's on your own land. Maybe it's on your neighbor's. Next step, gauge the pressure on all sides of that pressure. And so you look at a chunk like this. Let's just say this is 60 acres. I'm looking at, like, maybe you have some fields down in this corner right here. It's open. Heavy pressure here, pretty bad pressure here, no pressure here, light on this side. Let's say those fields represent the food source, or there's food plots in that corner, whatever the reason. Well, if you're going in there in the morning and you're walking through those fields or food plots to get to your stand, you're going to spook deer. So you can't access there. Do you want to sit up against the bad pressure? I don't, because I want to use that bad pressure to my advantage. We used to do this, the snowmobile trail used to go through a neighboring property. And during December, if there was snow, we knew that if we put some cover between us and that snowmobile trail, we got excited when we would hear snowmobiles in the distance, sometimes 2 miles away, 3 miles away, because when they came through that trail, they would kick deer out of the hollow. And out of all the years that I've hunted in that location on 2 different properties, I believe 23 seasons, but I could be wrong on that. Right around there, 24, 23. Since 2002, that was my first season. But bottom line is, in all the years we've hunted, all the hunting we've done on both those properties, those were the biggest numbers of deer we ever saw. So we were using snowmobile pressure coming through trails, and unfortunately, Snowmobile Club would say, they don't spook the deer. They just stand there and watch you go by. Well, a portion of the young herd does. They just stand and watch you go by. But I wanted to have a good patch of cover between myself and that pressure so that I could let the deer come to me. And it was a slow filter. I shot a monster buck in 2011, I believe. It's one of our target bucks in Wisconsin. And what I did was I accessed all the way around, patch of cover, heavy, heavy northerly winds, northwest winds, went down into some rocks, and then I could picture this whole valley. Well, it filled up with deer. The neighbors spooked deer. The neighbors across the road spooked deer. And they eventually, by 10 a.m., they're starting to filter in, and I see that buck all the way on the other side of the hollow, working his way around to me. Shot him about 11 o'clock, somewhere around there. And it was one of those, if I would have come in from any other direction, I would have spooked those deer. And if they're not piling in there, you're probably in the wrong spot because they're piling in somewhere with low pressure. And so in a case like this, I don't want to access through the fields into a stand because I'm spooking deer out here. I don't want to access with the heavy pressure and sit over here because now I'm waiting for an area of light or no pressure to push deer to me, and that's just not going to happen. Why would they move all the way over to the heavy pressure? So what I want to do is I want to find a way in through the light or no pressure at all, and I want to sit, and let's say there's a ridge system in here where you know they bed. I want to get up in this ridge system, have a bed right there, and wait for these deer to get pushed into there from the heavy pressure. I'm going to clean that up a little bit just so it makes some more sense. So I'm looking at gauging the pressure on all sides. I'm then looking at accessing the opposite side of the food and the cover, the heavy hunting pressure. So I'm accessing in through this way if possible, through this way. And I'm getting in a spot, I don't want to walk through all the way through that cover and destroy it. I want to use that cover to let deer come to me off the fields in the morning, come to me through the bad pressure. So then I'm looking in this little pocket right here. And I'm trying to say, maybe there's a pond down here. Well, then they're obviously going to move around that pond. Maybe there's a nice little higher ridge system right here where you can imagine deer bedding. Then I want to get right there and go no further. I want to find something that possibly can hide me going in. You're basically going on the opposite side from the heavy cover, not going through the food, not walking through all of your cover, and you're getting to a point of a pinch point, a funnel, where deer can be pushed to your direction and then they're not going typically much further. Ideally, you'd have a big pond right here. You could access along the pond, get in just a little bit, wait for the deer to come back. Depending on where you're at, ag land, where there's mostly ag land like the thumb, you could be 200 yards away from that pressure and you're right in that sweet spot where bucks will go back to. Maybe in a northern wilderness section where it's all big woods and big patches of woods are common, deer move a lot further from that pressure. I found, and I've known of people walking in, spooking deer, and where they're baiting, where they're hunting, and I'm shooting a buck 3/4 a mile from that location. So a lot different in those big wood setting compared to real small areas. Now you can have those deer that lace out across open ag fields to get to a spot, but even then I want to be on the back side of that cover where they're coming from and not on a fence row shooting them while they're running into that cover. I want to be in the cover, wait for them to come to me. When it comes to a deer blind or where you hunt in a location like that, what I don't want to do is go in there and make a bunch of noise. I don't want to be up in tree. I don't want to be dinging, clanging. If you can get a stand in, whatever you use, extremely quiet. You want to hunt out of a stand, awesome. If you want to hunt of a blind, the worst thing you could do is go in there a week before the season, 3 days before the season, and build your blind, set it up, make a bunch of noise, shoot, clear shooting lanes. So you either have that blind set way ahead of time, or like I've done in the past and it's worked out well, is I take a pop-up in that I can set up just like turkey season that I can set up pretty quietly, a chair, and I go in, put it in some really good brush, where I know there's some blowdowns, whatever it might be, and I set that in that location quietly, predetermined place, somewhere I can easily imagine it going, and get that in opening morning. And number 5, I'm going in early. It doesn't hurt to be the earliest person in the woods in your neighborhood. Bring some coffee, bring some snacks, bring a pillow if you have to, and you're in a blind, and just relax and have a good time. There's been many times in gun season openers where I've actually got a little shut-eye, enjoying some peace and quiet and relaxation, hearing a lot of people from different directions come in the distance, hearing ATVs, even people talking, dark cars, car doors slamming. Even out on public land, we're going in a lot further, but the area we hunted last year, and we usually hunt, that I've hunted since 93, it's about a 3-by-3 mile area of timber. Reservoir on 2 sides, roads on 2 sides. When I get into that section there's parking areas on the 2 sides, campground, boat launches, shoreline launches, approaches. So I want to get in the middle of all that. And so then I have pressure coming in from either side. I want to come in an area where I think there's not going to be a lot of deer because of the habitat. And then I want to take a side cut, and I look at it like I'm accessing perpendicular to the line of movement I expect to see the deer based on the ridge systems and knowing where they should move and how they should move through that topography. And then I want to go in, sit down, and be quiet. And that's what we were doing last year, hearing cars slow down on the highway a mile and a half away, or actually an hour and a half walk away, boats coming in, and we're in there already sitting down, waiting for those deer to come to us, and they did. And shot a nice buck there on public land. But that's the same formula I've used for decades in Pennsylvania, for decades on public or on private land, small parcels, big parcels. And if you can figure out this approach and take these steps of finding that big patch of buck cover, gauge the pressure on all sides, find out where it's the lightest, where it's the heaviest, access the opposite side of the food and that pressure, get in, make sure your deer blind is quiet going in. You get in there early, and opening day can be a breeze. And maybe you already take this approach, and I applaud you, and that's awesome. But if you take the same approach every year, if you can think about how you can change your strategy to fit within this, even using the same deer blind. A lot of times it's not even changing the location of the deer blind. A lot of times it is, but there's often it's not, and it's just about accessing into that blind from a completely different direction to allow the deer to come into your lap, assuming that all is good and they found a little honey hole to actually stockpile in for opening day. You're sitting on the outside of that, and boy, those hunts are a lot of fun, and I hope you have a great and safe gun season opener this fall. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. You're our best followers. You followed all the way to the end of the video. Really invite you to check out our website. We have our earthway spreaders for sale, great Christmas presents. We're booking clients right now, all 5 of us. So by the end of December, it seems early, but by the end of December, our schedule will be booked for 2025. It's hard to believe. I'm already booked for December and most of January, February. We have our web classes, the rut web class, how to design your whitetail property, and really important, hunting hills and thermals, understanding the wind. Those are great products on our site, all the books. Thank you so much for watching all the videos, buying the seed that you did this year. Really appreciate you.